My name is Peter Knapp. I'm with Real Broker. I am the team leader of the Peter Knapp Realty Group, and we specialize in residential real estate in Northern Virginia.
Beautiful. Now, you transitioned from running a litigation support business to founding the Peter Knapp Realty Group in 2010.
Mhm.
What inspired this shift, and how have your previous experiences influenced your real estate
Good
approach?
question. Yeah, I had a litigation support business because unbelievably years ago, law firms would do copying and scanning and multiple projects, and then we would help different sides get the documents produced. And then we started in 2002 and with 5 people in Tyson's Corner. And then we got up to about 55 in 2005 and a bigger company bought us. And so what had to happen there was I had to work for the company that bought us for 2 years and then I had a 3-year non-compete. So my plan at the time was to work for the company that purchased us and then sit out my non-compete and then start another litigation support business. But what ended up happening was that all the paper that was produced very quickly went electronic. And my sort of focus and passion, frankly, is service. So when you could deliver boxes and things like that to people, there's a lot more service involved. But when
Yeah.
all that paper went electronic, the options for doing that became a lot less.
Hmm.
And so I got my real estate license just basically in 2006, not knowing what I was going to do with it, but with the ultimate intention of starting another litigation support business. Then I decided, hey, that business isn't as attractive. I'm just going to go fully into real estate right around, I would say around 2010 is when
Yeah.
I really started focusing on real estate. And that's a really good question about what I brought over. Lawyers, paralegals, law firms, they need things 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's the only way I know how to work. And so I think people in real estate really appreciate that. And the fact that myself and my team are always available for them all the time. When they text, I'll text right back. My team will text right back because in the litigation support business, the goal was when someone needed something, you would go pick it up or help them, and you wanted them to be able to deal with you and then focus on their next task as soon as possible. So that's the sort of mindset we bring to real estate.
I love it. And
Yeah,
now, what was that transition like for you? Was it easy? Did you have a coach? Were
good
there some
question.
hurdles? Tell me
No,
about
tons
that.
of hurdles. I at the time I was with a company called Remax Gateway, and I had a great broker named Scott McDonald who I really really liked, and so I would go to him for questions, and but I didn't, you know, a lot of things in real estate you just figure out on your own. That's why experience is so important.
Hmm.
And I had been a sales rep in litigation support for 3 or 4 years and then owned the business. So I had the preparation. So I think, like with anything with real estate, I took my lumps. I learned on the
Yep.
go. Scott was always there in my early years, which was good. But you can't call someone with everything, and you just sort of have to learn. And I frankly think that's one of the things in real estate that's missing a little bit is the direct mentorship. Different firms try to do it different ways. But when you're in your first few years of real estate, it's so hard.
Yeah.
And you need someone, whoever it is, to be available to you 24/7 because there's so many little questions that you
Absolutely.
ask because we're dealing with people and contracts, not like widgets and just sort of things to figure out. So it's
That's
always
right.
changing.
Yeah. And now your team sold over 620 homes,
Hmm.
totaling more than 327 million in sales.
Yeah,
What qualities do you look for when bringing someone onto your team, and how do you foster such a high performing group?
good question. I have a relatively small team, and what I've learned over the years, I've thought about going big, I've thought about going medium, I've thought about going small. I made the decision that I want very specific people with very specific qualities because I want when someone comes and they say we want to use your team. Sometimes they work with me, sometimes they'll work with Lindsay on my team, but I want it to be the same experience for everyone. And so what I would look for is someone who is used to the 24-hour, 7-day a week aspect. They have to be tough. They have to have thick skin. And I think one of the things that I provide as a leader is from the second that they come on our team, or from the second I meet them, I'm very transparent about the tough parts of real estate. I think one thing that I notice, the older I get, is that some people sort of have that, the positives of real estate, and they're doing videos like I am,
Yeah.
and so and those things. But I'm very, very honest with people about, look, there are going to be weekends. They're going to be, 9 o'clock at night. It's going to be tough, and then there's also, upsides. You have a very flexible schedule and things like that. But yeah, I look for someone who's tough, smart, um, and gets along well with people.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's great that you're transparent with them, like
Yeah.
right off the bat. So there's no like, what? I didn't know this, right? So I think that's so
Totally.
important.
And what happens is, I think there are all these stats about people getting into real estate and why people leave. And I think one thing that's left out is, if you surveyed the people who left and said, why did you leave? Ineffective guidance and coaching and expectations, I think, would be a large part of it.
Hmm.
Because I don't think people who aren't in real estate realize how hard the first 0 to 3 years are. And I'll give you an example. Lindsay from my team, she's been with me 3 years, and she is just terrific. I mean, she's amazing. And so she was a bartender before, and she came to me, and that's one sort of place where I think that it was a really good transition, because she's used to dealing with people, she's used to weekend hours, things like that. And I'll never forget our first meeting. Is I was just preparing her. You will have a contract you think you're going to get paid on, you're going to closing, that'll just disappear. These are the tough things. And I think that she'll tell you she appreciates the fact that when you tell someone that and then it happens, it's less jarring, because she can say, oh, Pete told me that might happen.
Yep.
Whereas when it happens and you haven't been told what to expect, you're like, oh man,
That's right.
we got to go do something else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so for marketing, I want to talk about a little bit about that and what is working for you, what isn't.
Mhm.
First of all, let's find out, what are you doing? Are you an avid social media user? Are you putting out video content? Are you going to networking groups? Talk to me about that.
Good. I think I have taken my lumps over 18 or 19 years in real estate. You just learn. And so you're Peter Knapp, and then you get busy enough where you have to do a team and you try different things. So I went through a long time doing leads, like Zillow leads, things like that. And those work for a lot of teams and people. The challenge I found with that is that you're getting someone new, and then you're basically making them into a lead developer or a cold caller and not a realtor. So it's very, very difficult. I think for a bigger team that works. For a smaller team, it isn't as effective.
Hmm.
So I learned that was kind of not my lane about 4 or 5 years ago. And then I just went to growing up around here, going to college around here, just the sphere, like going to people and things like that. And then also about 5 years ago, we started doing more social media, more video and things like that. And I love doing that because the people who were with me at the time, I think it was about 2020, and my team, I don't naturally love to say, hey, I just went running, or I just did this, I just did that. But they almost like forced me to do it, because they said, you are the brand, so just post what your life is like. And frankly, I started doing it. It's kind of fun.
See,
they're
and now you
yeah,
like that. I was going to say,
yeah,
not a lot of
exactly.
people say, no, I love doing
Yeah,
it. Like,
exactly.
love.
And it's cool, because if I go running or something, then I'll get some friend that'll, text me and say, hey, I saw you running, or, you're out there. And then we have like different friends that sort of motivate one another
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So it's really cool when I go to like a family event and I haven't seen my cousins in a while, and then they're just talking about, oh, you sold this house, you sold that house.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't happen without social media. So right now we're focusing, I would say, on our sphere, social media. Lindsay's done a great job at open houses. And open houses are a great example of expectations, because a new agent comes on board and you just have to say, look, do 40 open houses, you'll probably get 3 or 4 things of business out of there. And that way, when they do 30 open houses and get no business, they're not coming back and saying, oh, I'm going to give up. And Lindsay actually, just after a good amount of open houses, got her first lead and her first closing. So people have to see that it works and then be like, oh, okay, this is why I'm doing that. So we've had success doing that. And then there's a networking group, actually, you mentioned that I just joined, called Provisors, that has been really, really enjoyable the last 2 or 3 months. And just a really good friend referred me to them, and that's been something I'm going to be more involved in.
Nice.
Because I've never done something like that.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
trying all kinds of new things
Exactly.
and just growing and going from there.
That's what we're trying to do.
I love it. Could you give maybe somebody who is struggling on getting themselves out there, like give them one tip that you've learned to like make yourself say, now, you know what? I love this.
It's so cliche, but go to everyone you know. There are a lot of things in real estate where you'll just get lit. It's kind of like advice from your parents. I'll give you, like, my dad, when I was in my 20s, he just said, get into business. And I had business in my head as like accounting, finance, stuff like that, that would put me to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I learned that business means getting along with people. So you just tell them. So someone new, everyone says talk to your sphere and things like that, but it's like talk to them in a very intentional way. Don't just say, oh, I just got into real estate. Give them details. Give them, I've been working every day for the last 45 days, working as hard as I can to build my business. What would it take for you to refer, give them not your pain, but your motivation and how sort of focused you are on it, and be more specific about what you're doing. And then the other thing is that anyone on my team would hopefully say is organization, because real estate is this. We have these planners that I bought that I went through a lot of different things organization wise. My business partner way back with the litigation support, who's this guy John Atkinson. He's my partner, but he's kind of my mentor too. He taught me a lot, and being organized in real estate will just save you so much time, because you just go through the day, and there's a lot of times there's no set schedule. Just things will just come and hit you different.
You got to
times.
be ready for that.
Yes, and so if you have a planner and an action plan of what you're going to do, but then you expect the other things are going to come in, and then you have one place to keep it all and to keep it all organized, that would be the other sort of piece of advice: is be intentional from the get-go. Have a plan each day of what you're going to do, and then revisit it over and over and over. And it sounds cliche,
but it's true.
Yeah, it's just consistency.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Wise words there.
Yeah.
And now, being a Reston native with over 33 years in Northern Virginia, how has your deep local knowledge benefited your clients, and what changes have you observed in the region's real estate landscape?
Wow. So I have to correct you there, because I might have given you the incorrect information. And this is going to date how old I am. I'm actually 48 years in this area.
Well, you look great.
Thank you. So I went here, and then I went to college in Williamsburg, and then I came back. But Reston, it really helps just because you obviously, I grew up, I played soccer growing into high school, and then tennis and golf. So we would travel a lot of different places. And so, especially when you're helping people buy homes, you have to know each area, and you have to know how far it's come, give it a little history, and then where it's going. And so someone who was a transplant, maybe they might not be as, like if myself or Lindsay are helping someone in Arlington, I can tell you what's happened in Arlington the last, dating me here, last 35 or 40 years. And so, yeah, that really helps. And then you also get a sense of where it's going, because you've seen it for so long.
Yeah.
And I remember my father once told me years ago, it was the toll road. I don't think a lot of people know, and I'm pretty sure when I say this, but the toll road almost didn't make it, if you can believe that, in terms of like financially. Like we would drive up to West Virginia and go where the Broadlands is, and it was kind of like there was nothing around it.
Oh, man.
And people were thinking, like, is that toll road going to be okay? And we would look to our left at the Broadlands, and we're like, wow, I wonder if they're ever going to develop it over there. And my dad just said, he goes, nope, that'll be what McLean is right now, or Reston is right now, and then keep going out.
Yeah.
And he was right, like most things. So.
He's always right.
Yeah,
One thing you need to know, he's always right.
Right.
And now, with nearly 2 decades in real estate, how have you seen the Northern Virginia market evolve, and what trends are you currently observing?
Good question. The evolving, it's been amazing. I mean, growing up, we used to play golf tournaments in Haymarket, and it was like we were playing on Mars. We would just go out there. We're like, where we're going? And so I would say this area, in my opinion, has developed very well, especially in Loudoun County, because I think the roads in Loudoun County, one example would be up Route 7, where they had the master plan of having the overpasses and no lights. Like that was really, really smart. And I think they saw some of the closer in places and modeled it after that. So I think that the trends and things like that, the whole remote work thing right now has things, frankly, in chaos.
Yeah.
Where I think during COVID and right after COVID, you had a lot of people moving out to the further out, like Purcellville, Berryville areas. And now with what's going on with the government and the flux there, people are either moving closer. And so I think that's going to make, obviously, Arlington, places closer in that I think were trending to be not less desirable, but less people had to live there. it's going to be interesting to see when people now are moving closer in,
Yeah.
if those areas are going to get even more attractive than they've been. And I don't think we'll know for probably 6 to 8 months to see how it's going to shake out, because
Yeah.
it seems like it went from, okay, people are going to go back to work in person, and we've had a lot of transactions where that has sort of caused them, where people are living here and then they're like, oh, our office was in Bethesda and I went in 1 day a week, and now I got to go in 5 days a week.
Yep.
And so they just don't know. And I think when that sort of shakes out, I think things will be more clear. But the one thing that will not change is that from whatever year it is, 2015 to 2000, maybe when the interest rates went up,
Yeah.
so many people have low rates that's always going to keep inventory low.
Yeah.
You know, because it takes a pretty major life event for someone to move.
That's right.
Because they have that good interest rate and they're like, I don't want to lose it.
I don't want to lose it. No, they want to stick to that. Yeah. I want to ask you about the data centers. What are your thoughts on that, as far as like the way they look and how they're like all over the area, but they bring in jobs? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I'll be honest.
Please.
I don't care for them. I don't. I mean, it's a little, I don't think they're awful, but I think it's a little, I don't even know the best. It looks like Star Wars.
Yes.
You know?
I thought that too.
Growing up around here, I've learned I'm a little protective of the area.
Oh, yeah, that's what I figured. I was like, let me ask him.
What are you doing? But I think that I think that they don't bring that many. They're necessary and they're good for taxes, and they're also, I know real estate. I was an English major. I know a decent amount about English. They're financially and taxes and everything like that. I don't know that much, so I can't speak to. I know that they're good for the for the county and things like that.
Yeah.
But aesthetically, it's tough.
Yes.
And
I agree.
think that also years back, at least from what I've heard, when folks were voting on whether or not data centers were going to go in, I think if they knew how they would look, they might have said, okay, homes would be better.
Yes.
Because I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions I hear is someone will say, well, the data center is bringing in jobs. And it's like, well, no, there are like 70 people. I mean, there aren't that many people in the data center. But on the flip side, like I said, there are things that are over my head in terms of internet and things like that I'm sure it's productive, but aesthetic. Like in Lansdowne, I live in Lansdowne, and we got our first one on the broad side of Belmont Ridge, and I was like,
Dang it.
But I get it. I think that it's just one of those things where you just kind of have to deal with it. I just wish that aesthetically they would look a little better. We were just talking about before it came on about the Dulles Town Center.
Yeah, that's right.
And then those ones right there, I just thought that they could have, whether it's trees, whether it's something like that.
A park, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. They could have done something, but you just go down 28 and you just sort of look to your right, and then there's another big one right there.
Yeah. So. No, that's fair enough. Thank you. Thank you for being honest and sharing.
I'm always going to be honest.
I appreciate that. What leadership philosophies or practices have you adopted to maintain team cohesion and motivation?
All right. So I got to be me. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I've in probably the last 6 or 7 years, I've listened to so many podcasts, had so many good coaches, that I've talked to and things like that, and I've tried everything. And I would say for any team leader or things like that, you just have to be you. Like my team will tell you, we're very family oriented. We are. I think that's one thing. I mean, we'll joke, and we know when it's time for business and getting after it. But I'm just more comfortable, because if I tried to have that sterile team leader, personality, I would look dumb. Because that's just not my way.
Yeah.
And I even think I not tried it for a while, but I was like, oh, okay, like whatever.
Like, I can't do this.
Right, exactly. So I think what happens is motivation. I think we all motivate each other because, frankly, we all like each other.
Yeah.
And when there's something, I'm a big believer. A huge part of my life is a guy named David Goggins, who I got into in 2018. He's a retired. He's a Navy SEAL, and his whole story resonated with me and helped me a lot. And the idea that every day there are going to be things you don't want to do, and if you do them, you will end up in a better situation. So I always tell people, I've been doing it 19 years, and I'll go and put a lockbox on a house. There are a lot of things I'd rather do than drive and put a lockbox on a house. But I just think of like Goggins, I think of my son, I think of my team and whatever, and that then gets that done. And then all of a sudden, good things come after it.
Yeah, I love that. No. Is there anything that I have not touched on that perhaps you want to get out there and share with your audience, our audience, or just anybody in the industry?
I think in the industry, I would say, being in the industry a long time, I have a different lens than I used to, where I'm an old fogey now in this
Oh,
industry.
stop
But it's true.
it.
Like I've just experienced it, and it's an awesome industry. I think I would speak to anyone new. Like we were saying, one thing I'm doing is one choice that I made was to keep the team small. I think I get approached a lot by people who are, oh, we want to join your team, or oh, you know, and things like. So I used to always just be like, oh, okay, I'm going to build my team. Now I have my team where I think I have that. We might grow a little bit, but it's not just growing people. But what I do now is I say, hey, because I'm with Real Broker, and which is just I've been with a lot of brokerages, and it's easily the best brokerage I've ever been with. They are terrific, and because they're very flexible about what you can do. And so this has actually happened where we had it so we didn't want to grow, but someone who I saw a lot of potential with came and just said, hey, can I join your team? I said, no, but why don't we do this? Why don't I just coach you once a week? You're a standalone agent, and then we'll meet once a week. I'm with you 24/7. We worked out how everything would work, and then when you don't need me anymore, then you just go out on your own.
Oh,
And I think that that's been a real. Actually, suggested it to another agent who I know and respect the other day, and that's been a good tool for me, and it's really gratifying coaching her. But it sort of fits where someone needs their person that they can go to until they can sort of fly on their own,
absolutely.
and the setup for that. And sometimes that's a team if the team leader is good and engaged. But the agents that come on board by themselves, just whether or not you go to another agent who's a solo agent, that's another great thing. Real just sort of, there are so many good brokerages that I've been with, and they all have good parts. And the one that Real had that really brought me to them was just their flexibility.
Yeah.
Like someone can come on board and they can be a referral agent, but then do sometimes their own deals, and they have a lot of different places where people can fit, and then that's the best thing. So I think that would be, I think as an industry, we need to make sure that the new people coming in are taken care of and given the best chance to succeed. And it sounds easy, but it's also difficult because everyone's, you know, the regular agent is trying to get their own business.
Yeah.
So then they have to be incentivized or just have the passion for making the other people great. So it's a tricky industry, but just go to someone that has done it in a while and who you trust,
Yeah.
and then they'll give you good guidance.
I like that. I like that you're like looking out for the newcomers too and trying
Definitely,
to share that
because I've been
perspective.
there.
Yeah. See?
And Scott, who I mentioned earlier, if I didn't have him my first 3 or 4 years, and what people don't realize, and that's why I've mentioned, and I think of Scott a lot, was that the way the business is set up is you have a broker, and then what would happen years and years ago is the broker would then take a bigger part of the agent's commission, so that broker would be more involved. They would be incentivized. And then what started happening was there was a model where there was a broker, and then a lot of agents who would come on board, and they just stopped for various reasons. They stopped giving as much money to the brokerage, and so. Scott is an example. He just had hundreds of agents, and yet he was still available.
Yeah.
Not everyone can do that.
No,
You know?
it's tough. You gotta have like the passion for it, like you said, incentivize or what have you.
Yeah, and
But
so you get a single agent or you get an invested team leader, and that's the best way to do it. And if I had to give someone advice, I would say for the most part, join a team, but just make sure the team leader because there are a lot of great teams around the area. And what I've seen too is with the bigger teams, you have a team leader, then you have sort of someone under the team leader who's in charge of the new people.
yeah.
And just be really, really, you have to be transparent you have to be transparent as a team leader, but then also when you're joining one, you have to be transparent and honest with someone about say like, hey, this is what I need. And are you going to give me all that?
Yeah.
And so in most cases, I mean, it's a crazy industry. I mean, it's nuts, and but
you love it.
yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't still be doing it.
It gives you that
Yeah,
buzz,
yeah.
the craziness.
And the flexibility.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. Well said. All right, 2 more questions here.
Yeah.
What are your aspirations for the Peter Knapp Realty Group in the next 5 years? Are there any new services or markets you're looking to explore?
Good. I think I'll never step away from doing it.
Never say never.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
kidding.
exactly. And so I think that Lindsay, who I mentioned earlier, I think my goal is to get her as much as basically just I've been, training her so that she can not take over my business, but so that people I refer to her, they get the same comfort level and experience as me.
Hmm.
And she's frankly ahead of the game. So
Wow.
yeah, because what happens normally is that career track wise, you work your first 5 or 6 years, you just do whatever business is coming. You
Yep.
get buyers and sellers. And there's some agents do it and it's hard, but what you want to do is eventually just get into one lane as a team leader. So my lane is listings.
Yeah.
There are certain people, repeat clients, they'll usually come and say, hey, and just it's not the biggest factor is just time, because buyers, it's much more unpredictable when you go out.
Hmm.
So what I've done is goal number one has been to, when someone comes in buying a property, they get me and Lindsay. And that's a pretty big differentiator. Is
Hmm.
Lindsay, she runs point, but then I'm on all the group texts and things like that. So they're basically working with two agents. So
Yeah.
one of my biggest goals is just to get that philosophy implemented. And then service area wise, I think we're comfortable in all of Northern Virginia, but Loudoun and Fairfax is where I end up doing most of my business.
Yeah.
And then I would say gradually getting Lindsay into my role and then bringing on agents after that,
Wow.
and more agents. And
That's-
so that's just living and learning, because
Yeah.
I just sort of I just learned that there's only so much of me to
That
go
you can
around.
give. Yeah.
Yeah, there's only so many hours in the day, and it's also finding the right person. And it's
Mhm.
just remarkable with because basically I have a 7-person team, about 7 people right now. I say about because I'm including the young man who does our I sound so old saying that.
Stop
He
it.
does our listing video.
Yeah. Okay.
But the foundation of my team is Kylie, who's here, and Lindsay. We're the ones who sort of do it every day. And
Mhm.
Kylie is 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Kylie is 3 years with me, and she was actually I spoke about Lindsay on the agent side, but she's the rock on the operations side.
Yeah. We have her
And
here
so
today too.
yeah, and so I think that there's going to be growth on Lindsay's end, but Kylie actually came to me. God, I think we're right on 3 years, right around 3 years.
Oh wow.
And so what happened there was I had a team that left the area, that 3 people. So the 4-person Peter Knapp Realty Group became Peter Knapp. And so I had to kind of rebuild. That's something we haven't really talked about.
Mhm.
And so my goal is to make sure that Kylie came on board when I had no one. And I just said to her, do everything.
Do everything.
And then which is good, because after 3 or 4 months, she had done agent things, she had done operations things, and I sort of observed that it takes a unique person to do agent things, and it also takes a unique person to do operations things.
Mhm.
And there's just a different mindset. Like
Yeah.
agent is always things are coming in, operations is more like thinking of the future and how you're going to build.
That's right.
And so frankly, it sounds corny, but everyone at this point in my career, I want everyone on my team to achieve as much as they can.
Mhm.
And I want to set them up for a career path. So what I learned was that if you have, Kylie's basically my rock on the operations, Lindsay is my rock on the agent side. And then I have Jesse, Lulu, and Daniel. They're agents. They're on their own, doing their own business. Sometimes they do referrals that come in, but they aren't full-time agents. So I think that me, Kylie, and Lindsay are basically in the trenches every day. So my goal is to make sure that they achieve their goals, and I try to mentor them as much as I can. And mentoring's hard because you have to, you just got to be honest, and you have to, and you've seen things pan out, and
Mhm.
so you have to say that. So I would say personally, that's a long-winded way of answering that question. Where I would say to help the people who have performed, because I mean, Lindsay and Kylie, over the last 3 years, I mean, we are like family, but they also every day give everything. They care about me.
Yeah.
And so my goal at this point is I'd like to expand the team, but what I've learned is if we have that, and then I constantly have new agents coming in and I'm trying to coach them or whatever, then my focus goes away from them.
That's right.
So I think that sort of never really stepping back, but stepping over and then letting them run the team and increase their roles. Because we already have, I mean, Kylie does. That's another thing that the team leader training is so difficult, because if you said, hey, what are your job responsibilities? if you're working at like Microsoft or somewhere like that, like more corporate, you have like, okay, I do these 20 things during the day.
Yeah.
She does 7 on Monday, 9 different ones
Oh
Tuesday.
man.
And we have this constant, and this is just, we have this constant thing of one day we're gonna crystallize exactly what you do.
What it is
Yeah,
that you do,
exactly.
yeah.
So both with her and Lindsay, I would say, you asked earlier what qualities,
Yeah.
and I think both on the operations and the agent side, you have to be very flexible. You have to know that, okay, this was supposed to happen at 10 o'clock. It didn't. Don't let that upset you. Just adjust and pivot. And pivot's sort of a pretty, ever since COVID, everyone uses that word, but
Yep.
we pivot 7 times a day.
Same here.
Just
Same here.
You're nodding like you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So,
I do.
Yeah.
Amazing. No, that's incredible. And it sounds like you've got like a whole bunch of goals. You've got the team to get to those goals that you're wanting. So that's great.
Yeah.
My final question is, do you have a quote, saying, or a mantra that has inspired you or you like to live your life by?
Well, our real estate one is setting new standards in real estate. And that's what I think about every day, where to be transparent with some people look at realtors, and I think anyone in our industry would say that. We're like, oh, okay, they just went and took a test, and there's no barrier to entry, and I just watched $1 Million Listing, and there are champagne parties and I always joke with people, I'm like, the real reality show would be everything we do each day. You know what I mean? The craziness that we'd have to have a lot of NDAs signed for like what we see people do and stuff like that. And so we deal with a lot of that. So I'd say setting new standards in real estate is good, because I think that a lot of people from the outside just don't really know what we do. And I think I like to be professional and things like that. So that would be my mantra there. And then as far as the rest of my life, people who know me probably get a little tired of me mentioning him, but David Goggins is it. He is my North Star, like what he does. And he has he has so many sort of expressions there, but I think that the one that resonates the most is his 40% rule. And that's what he says, that we're all achieving 40% of what we could each day. And I've learned that is so true. And there are times like, this morning I did not want to go out and run. And I put on Goggins for like 30 minutes and I ran on 10 miles.
Wow.
Yeah. And just
10 miles.
listening to him. And no, it's true.
Kudos to you.
They'll tell you. But is that I think it's just do something you don't want to do every day. And just that little thing, because I'm human. And I'm weak, and
You're literally not. You just ran 10 miles.
No, I do that. Well, I do that. I do. They'll tell you too. Like everyone says, oh, I do it for stress management, and to just sort of get away for a little. And I like listening to books and stuff.
Yeah.
But it is amazing once you sort of. I would say he's taught me a lot of things, but the mindset idea. Something comes in, and it's like not, oh, I don't want to do that. It's, oh, that's an opportunity to. I was telling my son, and when you get a teacher you don't like, you just, Goggins says that. I can just hear I've listened to him so long that I hear, but you just, a teacher you don't like, you just kill them with success. So if you get a client that's really, really hard on you, you can either bemoan it. We do our venting, trust me, about just stuff. But at the end of the day, the hardest client, the most difficult clients I have resulted in my best performance, which is kind of crazy.
Look at that. Yeah, that's insane.
You're like, yeah. And so, because that's when you really, really have to step it up. And because in real estate, there's, those are the people that are referring you business. Yeah. And one of my best friends, he's a lawyer, and we were playing golf one day. It was 7 or 8 years ago, and I've been very lucky to be surrounded by a lot of smart people. And I said to him, I said, he's a pretty, he's a very successful lawyer, but he deals with really stressful situations. I'm sitting here saying like, oh, my client wasn't, this happened, or an inspection thing fell through. And I asked him, I said, how do you deal with it? He said, people are paying me money. They can do whatever they want.
That's a good point.
And I said, okay.
Point well
said. So mindset wise, and so I think that's one thing that I like to do is I always try to learn each day, failing forward. Like that's a big one.
So many good ones. Yeah, it's all about the mindset. I think you really touched on that. And that's
I answered your question with like 40 answers.
No, I love it. That's good. More content for me.
I get passionate.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on
here.
Yeah,
thanks for having
me. Kylie too. You guys were awesome, and I loved having you as a guest. So thank you.
Cool. Very nice. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Cool.
We did it.
All right.
That was awesome.
Yay.
What'd you think, Kylie?
Wonderful.
Yay.
So fluid. So
Natural.
questions. So
He has his own
Yeah, it
I'm a yes.
explains everything that you